So last night I was on MSNBC, and it wasn't. It was with Justin Elliott from ProPublica, and ProPublica wrote a piece about the 400 people who have been installed in different agencies in the Trump administration on a supposed interim basis, but they're a bizarre group of people. There is no transparency about who they are. This is contrary to other administrations. There is no rush by the Trump administration to put in actual heads in these agencies. So these people have far more authority than in the past. And there are a wide array of people from like Breitbart writers to some 40 to 50 lobbyists. There could be more. They haven't tracked down everybody. And like even like somebody who graduated high school last summer are in charge of these agencies.
What the hell, Dad?
And so, and I went on there with Justin Elliott, and I should also say Lauren Kirshner, former producer of the show, was also part of that reporting of ProPublica. And so I get off the show, and I get a tweet from somebody pointing me to a Greg Gutfeld comment. Now, Greg Gutfeld is a guy who is on Fox's The Five. He used to be, and I think he has maybe a weekend show there. And he used to be the host of Red Eye, which is like their 3 o'clock in the morning comedy show.
Across all these platforms, always unfunny.
And so he writes, watching MSNB, I don't know if that's supposed to be I don't know if that's supposed to be some type of
classic
some type of joke.
Gutfeld.
Kelly, why don't you click over there? Watching MSNB mock Trump White House for not being up on government ins and outs. Hey, a-holes, they aren't lifetime shitbags who live off us.
Ha ha! I bet you got your panties in a twist on that one.
So he's saying that we're a-holes for mocking people for not being up on the government's ins and outs. These aren't just people who don't know their way around government. These are people who have no expertise in the agencies that they're involved in. So in other words, no involvement in health policy, being at an agency that might deal with health policy. No involvement in finance in an agency that might deal with finance. No involvement in infrastructure or building or anything like that that may even give a clue as to what they're doing. They were just various campaign apparatchiks. And part of this is a function of nobody, even in the conservative world, in the Republican world, wanted to work with the Trump people. And the Trump people didn't want to work with anybody who had expertise because they're just out there to undermine, essentially, government. And so I write, so someone writes me, would you like to respond, Sam Seder, and links to Greg Gutfeld. And Greg Gutfeld I find to be rather boring.
Sad.
And I wrote, not particularly, but if I were to start, I start with the 47 plus former lobbyists whose exclusive job it was to drain public money. In other words, you talk about people living off of us in caps. You would imagine that someone would be concerned about the fact that literally these people's jobs, before they went in, and we don't know enough as to whether or not they're still being paid, frankly, by these lobbying firms, was to suck tax dollars out of the government. Maybe for good, maybe for bad. I don't know. But, I mean, that seems to be the issue. And so he wrote back, you were great, by the way. Your dramatic pauses especially made the segment. Now,
that's YouTube comment level.
Yeah, this is really like, this is not terribly, well, first of all, it's not addressing the topic, right? Presumably, like, he was making a substantive complaint about our analysis. Presumably. I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe that was a mistake. But he came back with like, your performance was really weak. And this apparently was an attempt at humor. And so I responded with, Greg Gutfeld, good to know you're not just not funny on TV.
Not bad.
I thought that was
very respectable, especially for a lady comic.
And he wrote back, oh dear, Sam doesn't think I'm funny. I get it. You can't defend your own hilarious ineptitude, so you project. So I guess the idea was like, you won't even defend yourself for taking extended pauses during the segment.
I don't stammer at Greg Gutfeld.
And at this point, I was gonna get into like, I mean, this guy should not be giving out critique of performance on television, right? I mean,
I think that we could very safely say
but
that.
I just figured I'm just gonna deal with his tweet, and I said, to be fair, no one else thinks you're funny. It's not just me. And B, must you prove to us that you're dim as well? And so then he was like, oh, I'm going to unleash. Now, understand, I'm in the car on the way back from the thing, and I'm not terribly... I've gotten into a lot of Twitter fights. You know, I used to have a lot of fun doing it with Breitbart, and I would get really into it. And I've gotten into Twitter fights
formidable.
with a lot of people. And Greg Gutfeld just...
He's not good.
Boring.
He's very similar
and
to
here's the thing.
him everywhere else.
Here's the thing. Well, I'll get to it. So he said, oh, Sam Seder, and now he wants to open up to his minions, right? Because he's got like, I don't know, 750,000 Twitter followers. And he goes, that took you a while. I was checking my watch. Look, I got to go to bed to be up for work. Don't remember that feeling, do you? So he gave me the old, you don't have a job. And he's also admitted that he's sitting there checking his watch and counting how long it takes me to respond. And frankly, you know, like I'm in the car, I'm texting with some people. I'm not, you know, I've got other things to do, even because his Twitter fight is just not that compelling. And so I just did a dude needs his rest. He's got to be sharp for the 5 because, you know, it's 9:30 at that point. And if he's got to go to bed to get his rest, to go on there and intellectually spar with
Meghan McCain
and Eric Ball.
Really hard stuff.
I gotta feel bad for that. And then he wrote one more here. And I thought he was going to bed, so I figured this is the end. And I wake up this morning. I think this is it for me because this is when like, okay, my car ride's over. I'm done. He said he's going to bed. And he wrote, oh, Sam Seder, what happened to you? Why no work for 2 decades? Misunderstood? Is that what you tell yourself? Why take it out on me? Need help? Now, here's the thing. Like, I saw this morning.
Rack 'em. Now I understand why he has a following.
And you know, of course, like I got a lot of like tweets from his fans, and there was basically 2 different replies from his fans, 3 different ones. I think he's very funny.
I'll have you know.
Don't I count? That was one model. The other model was, I think Greg Gutfeld is funny. Who's Sam Seder? And then the third was, Gutfeld's very funny. Why don't something like, Greg, I guess you got her all upset. That was the rage of replies.
I gotta go retweet these now.
So when I got up in the morning, and here's the thing. I know Greg Gutfeld used to be a comedian. And
really?
I know.
Honestly?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I know, and I'm sure that he knows some of the people that I know that...
Like actual comedians?
Actual comedians who are friendly with him. Some of whom are very prominent. Some of whom less so. And, you know, the thing is, like, it's arguable that people could say, like, you know, you're not very funny anymore, Sam. And you know, because you've gone into this business, you left. to a person, everybody says, no, he was never funny. Like all of these comedians who have like been on Red Eye, comedians who I think, are friendly.
So people
with
that
him.
he might think actually respect his work.
I don't know. I don't know how, but like, because in the past, like I've said to someone, like, how could you go on that show? And he goes, well, he's not a bad guy. He's not funny. I mean, like literally that was always
like, oh, he's a nice guy. Oh, of course, he's completely terrible.
No,
but he's a
it was
nice
just
guy.
like, that's the way comedians talk. He's like, yeah, but not funny. I mean, nice guy. And so I've helped him out or whatever. I need to promote. And I was, when I went to bed, I was just like, I'm going to just leave it at the 5. And I wake up in the morning and I see like, he's still like going on with this thing. And I was like, I reached for the phone and I felt like I should just tweet out, like, because he knows. I mean, let me put it this way. It would take him only a moment. If he doesn't, he may not. Although he apparently, knows I haven't been working for 2 decades.
Yeah, he seems really invested in you.
But he surely knows that we know the same people. In fact, in addition to, like knowing the people who do his show, the show now, the Red Eye, which I have seen a couple of times. It's just impressively unfunny. But and I thought like, oh, this will hurt him. And I'm like, you know what?
Just let it be.
Just let it be. One thing, though, did occur to me. How uninterested even my followers, not nearly as many as his followers, are in him.
No
like,
one
here's
cares.
a guy who's been on Fox for 10 years, more?
Every
less?
time we do
No
a
one
Gutfeld,
cares about Greg Gutfeld.
every time we do a segment that involves him, whether it's you or myself, you always need to reintroduce who he is. It's never like, obviously with a lot of these other people, it's like, it's Tucker Carlson, it's Bill O'Reilly, it's whoever. Greg Gutfeld, the guy who isn't funny. You always got to reset it.
I feel like people would have been more interested in if I got into a Twitter fight with Bill Hemmer. like
Yes.
like the straight 11 a.m. news guy. I don't know if he's still on there, but I mean, you got to feel bad if you're Greg Gutfeld. I mean, obviously, like it's a good gig he's got. I mean, I imagine that's pretty choice, right?
Yeah.
You go in, you make a lot of cash. I mean, do you really need to prepare? I mean, it seems to me you show up, you sit down. The only thing you got to do is make sure that you don't have something stuck in your teeth.
You can sexually harass everyone.
I mean, yeah, who knows what happens in the commissary over there. But you also got to feel bad that you're a bomb thrower on this network, right? I mean, because it's not like he's constrained by his journalistic integrity. And he doesn't, do they even have a search tag for him on Media Matters? Like, no one cares about this guy. No one cares. And at least on the left, like we spend a lot of time in digging into stuff. But
as I say, part of the reason I need to always reintroduce him is because I forget who he is, literally. And he's never the center of a clip.
It's because it's of Eric Balling. It's because he and Eric Balling are sort of interchangeable. And they're both there. They're just saying stupid.
Balling's better.
Equally funny.
Balling's slightly better. But it does settle a big debate. Who is funnier, lesbian or gay guy?
Let's move on. Hey, folks, Sam Seder here. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses. And one way he can is by you subscribing to this channel. I don't know how that works.